Dorit Kemsley has so much to show from her marriage to Paul P.K. Kemsley. The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills cast member has 2 children with her now estranged husband, and an accent that she picked up from nearly a decade of marriage to the talent manager. Dorit spoke with BravoTV.com during RHOBH Season 7, which was her first season on the show, where she opened up about her unique accent. She explained that her accent comes from all of the places she's lived, in addition to her marriage to PK, who is from the United Kingdom. "I think the way of how I speak is a combination of many things," she stated, as seen in the throwback video above. "First and foremost, I am married to a Brit who's got a very, very strong London accent, and I'm sure some of those inflections have sort of rolled over on me," she admitted at the time they were still married when the video was filmed. Dorit had faced some criticism for her accent during RHOBH Season 7, when Erica Jane declared, "You're an American. You were born in Connecticut." But prior to meeting PK, Dorit had lived in Italy and traveled all over the world with her career in fashion. Dorit Kemsley reveals how her parents have played into her accent. She continued, admitting that her parents, Rachel and Shalom Limmel, also play a factor in her accent. Dorit grew up with 2 siblings, Debbie and David Limmel. Although she was born in Connecticut, Dorit's dad is from Israel, and her mom is from Tangier, also influencing the way she speaks today. "My parents are not American," she explained. "I was born and raised in America. I did spend a significant amount of time, nearly 10 years, back and forth going to Europe. I spent a lot of time working all over the world in various places of the world where people did not speak English all that well. I had a tendency to over-enunciate, so I think at times some of my English is a part of that and part inflection," she revealed. "And, being around a lot of Europeans and a lot of Brits, you just become a product of your environment, really. That's who I am. That's the way I speak." Are Dorit Kemsley and PK Kemsley divorced? No, not yet. Dorit and PK are still married and going through their divorce after Dorit officially filed on April 15, 2025, citing irreconcilable differences after they had officially separated in May 2024. Dorit Kemsley opens up about her relationship with PK Kemsley. During an April 2025 interview with Rollercoaster magazine, Dorit gave some insight into the early days of her relationship with PK. She admitted that while they were dating, they had talked about her pursuing her career over starting a family with him. But she chose to start a family with him, which ultimately resulted in them getting married and welcoming their first child in 2014. "PK and I were very codependent," she admitted. "I had my own business. I had my factories in Italy and Hong Kong, so I had to travel and was selling all over the world. I was also looking to grow it bigger and bigger. PK and I were not the type of people to be independent. We had only been together about a year, but it was different," she recalled. "I was engaged twice before PK to 2 wonderful men, and I didn't go down the aisle. And with PK, after 3 months, I felt like I'd known him my whole life. There was just something very different. It felt like 2 pieces of a puzzle that fit." Although she is going through a divorce with PK, she admitted that she would not have changed how they got together. "My heart, everything felt like this was my future," she explained. "It wasn't an easy decision, but ultimately, when you are faced with challenging decisions, you have to really think about what is in your best interest. PK was the choice for me, and to build a life with him. If given the chance, I would make the same choice." The papers were on the mahogany desk, stark white against the dark, polished wood. They were the final formal period at the end of a long, convoluted sentence. Dorit ran her finger over the signature line, a faint tremor in her hand. The act of signing had felt like a severance, a quiet, definitive cut that left a strange emptiness behind. She looked out the window, past the manicured lawns and swaying palms of Beverly Hills, and a voice echoed in her memory. "You're an American. You were born in Connecticut." The words, sharp and accusatory, were a relic from another lifetime, a time when her life was a different puzzle. Her gaze drifted from the sun-drenched hills to the reflection of her own face in the glass. The woman looking back at her was a mosaic of experiences, and the truth of that was etched not just in the lines around her eyes, but in the cadence of her voice, a melody that had confused so many. She closed her eyes, and the memories began to play like a film reel, unwinding from the earliest scenes. She was a little girl in Connecticut, sitting at the kitchen table, her mother Rachel speaking to her in a melodic, accented English tinged with the flavors of Tangier. Her father, Shalom, would interject with a lilting Hebrew rhythm, his words rolling out like a secret language. The sounds were a lullaby, a comfort, but they were also a source of a subtle, childish alienation. At school, her classmates sounded different. Their words were flat, unseasoned. When she tried to emulate them, her own tongue felt foreign and clumsy in her mouth. She was a bridge between two worlds, a small, American-born girl whose voice carried the echoes of the Mediterranean and the Middle East. The film reel fast-forwarded to her early 20s, a decade spent abroad. She found herself in Italy, the hum of her fashion business a constant, exhilarating backdrop. Her English became a tool, a chameleon skin she shed and donned as needed. She learned to over-enunciate with those who struggled, her voice becoming a clear, patient beacon in a sea of confused phrases. In the streets of Milan, she spoke with a certain flourish, the soft vowels of Italian and the sharp, staccato consonants of her work life abroad, weaving themselves into the fabric of her speech. Her voice was becoming a passport, stamped with the sounds of every country she had visited. It was in this life, this fiercely independent, globe-trotting life, that she felt most herself, most whole. Then, a new scene, a new voice. A London accent, deep and commanding, filled the frame. Paul, P.K. They had met, and within 3 months, her carefully constructed world shifted on its axis. He wasn't just a man, he was a missing piece, a part of her that she hadn't even realized was absent. Their conversations were a dance of different accents, a push and pull of American and British inflections. She found herself mirroring him, a subtle but undeniable transfer of sound. It was the natural byproduct of a love so intense it felt codependent, a partnership so consuming that their individual identities began to merge. Her career, once the singular focus, took a backseat. He was the choice, the future, the family she had yearned for, and with that choice came a new layer to her identity, a new inflection on her tongue. The London cadence was a souvenir of their love, a quiet testament to the life they had built together. The screen flickered to a more recent memory, a television studio buzzing with lights and cameras. A woman with a voice as sharp as a diamond had challenged her, calling her an American, as if the word itself was a shield to be brandished. Dorit remembered the jolt of that moment, the sudden public spotlight on the very thing she had always felt was her truth, her voice. She had defended it, explaining its patchwork origins, but the words felt hollow in the face of such aggressive disbelief. She had been an American born in Connecticut, yes, but she was also a woman who had spent a decade in Europe, a daughter of immigrants from Tangier and Israel, and a wife to a Londoner. To deny one part was to deny the whole. She was not a single definable thing. She was a sum of all her parts, a map of her life's journey, and the map was printed on her tongue. A single tear traced a path down her cheek as she opened her eyes. The papers were still there, the quiet arbiters of a marriage that had run its course. But the truth was, she wasn't just ending a chapter, she was beginning a new one. The woman in the window was still a daughter, a mother, and an American, but she was no longer just PK's wife. The accent, once a source of confusion and criticism, felt like an old friend. It wasn't just a British inflection or a European lilt. It was the story of Rachel and Shalom, the memory of sun-drenched Italian piazzas, the echo of a London accent she had once loved so deeply. It was the sound of her life, and it was uniquely, unapologetically hers. She picked up the pen and, with a new kind of confidence, signed the final document, her voice silent but her story loud and clear.